Change is really hard for me. Anytime I want to better myself in any way, I struggle to create new habits. But what I found is helpful is understanding why I have the bad habit in the first place, if this makes sense. So whether I'm trying to lose weight or get a handle of my home or my finances, it's really helpful to have the self-awareness of why I'm struggling in the first place with that negative habit. So today, instead of talking about how to declutter, I want to talk about why you have clutter in the first place. And there are 5 different types of clutter, and I think if you can really identify which one of those 5 you're struggling with the most, that's the first step to understanding yourself and your home and overcoming this struggle once and for all. The first type of clutter is probably the most common type of clutter. I think everyone has this, and I call it homeless clutter. And what I mean by this is things in your home that you use, but it doesn't actually have a dedicated place to go. I see this a lot with bills or mail first coming in the house, and you're like, I have to pay it eventually, but for now, it kind of doesn't have a place to go in the interim. So it just ends up on your kitchen counter. Or it's artwork or things you need to sign, or you bought something at the store and it doesn't quite fit and you have to return it. Where does that go? It adds up to a lot of homeless clutter. Clothes that you've worn that aren't really dirty enough to go back in your closet, but you don't want to wash it. Usually it's homeless clutter on a chair or like piled somewhere in your house. Coupons, receipts, flyers, I don't know. There's just so many things that come into our house that don't necessarily have a designated home. Maybe you want to fix something and you have like all the tools out to get to that project, or you've started a project and you're not quite done. So all of those supplies are just in a pile somewhere. This is all homeless clutter, and it can fill a house pretty quickly. If this is something you struggle with, creating homes for your homeless clutter is really as easy as just dedicating a basket or a drawer or a shelf or a closet for all of this sort of random stuff. I have a black armoire that's like my homeless clutter catcher. So if I have something in my house and I don't know where it should go, or I'm not done with it, or I'm still using it, it goes into the armoire. I know it's there. It's not taking up my living space, but I'm not giving it a permanent home. I feel like every house needs some sort of homeless clutter catcher. Let me know in the comments below if homeless clutter is something that you struggle with, and specifically, like, what is the biggest offender? I feel like recyclables is also homeless clutter, right? You want to take it out to the curb or to the garage, but in the meantime, you rinse your recyclables and you leave them all over the kitchen counter. That counts as homeless clutter. The next type of clutter is something I call fantasy clutter, and this is definitely the thing I struggle with the most. Fantasy clutter is like your idealized self stuff. And this can come in lots of different ways. This can be workout equipment, my treadmill. I often buy yoga things or like workout gear, the things that go to the back of the door to like stretch my triceps that I never use, that I forget, and I buy another one. I have like 4 of them that I keep donating. I've never used them. Fantasy Cass has a lot of hobbies. She's like the most interesting person in the world. Real life Cass just collects random clutter with the intention of using it someday. But fantasy clutter can even go a little bit further and be things that you're going to get to someday. Maybe you're saving all your old kids' baby clothes because you're going to make a quilt, or you're going to mend something before you donate it. Maybe you want to find the perfect place to donate your old whatever it is. You want to make sure that everything's going to the right home, or you want to make sure that everything's being disposed of as perfectly as possible. This kind of all goes hand in hand with fantasy clutter because we have this really idealized version of the person we want to be. We want to make sure we're doing things right. We want to make sure that we can be proud of ourselves, and that can easily equal clutter. And the craziest thing about fantasy clutter is it comes with good intentions. We want to feel better about ourselves, but what actually happens when we're not using those things or completing those projects is that clutter becomes toxic. Because every time we look at it, it's telling us we're not good enough. It's reminding us of all the ways that we're failing, that we're not living up to our potential or our idealized self. And it's very toxic. It's bullies is what I like to call fantasy clutter. So when just realizing what it is, identifying what this stuff is and how it's making you feel is definitely the first step to overcoming this and letting it go. The next type of clutter is the worst. It's guilty clutter. Guilty clutter is something that you don't like, you don't want in your house, but you feel bad letting it go. And this could be your kids' terrible macaroni necklaces or those hideous handmade Mother's Day stuff they make you at school. And they're like, look at this. And then even 10 years later, your kids are grown and you're holding on to it because you feel guilty letting go of it. Or it's something even more guilt, like your loved one passed away, your grandmother passed away, and you got her china set that is so ugly and you don't love it, but you feel bad letting it go. It can even be expensive things that we've purchased that we shouldn't have, like the treadmill, treadmill. And every time we look at it, we're like, oh, I spent $1,000 on that. I can't get rid of it, but I hate it. I hate dusting it. I hate looking at it, and I'm certainly never going to use it. But for some reason, we feel guilt and shame letting that stuff go. And this is one of the hardest things to deal with. It's almost like we're people pleasing our junk. We're allowing our stuff that we don't want to control us, and we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, even people who aren't living, but not even that, like even we don't want to hurt I don't know, our bank accounts feelings. It's very weird. Guilty clutter is weird. But when we know that that's what it is, when we can look at something and realize, like, I don't even like that sweater that my mother in law got me for Christmas. Why am I having it in my closet? Because I feel guilty letting it go because it was a gift. Well, that's crazy. She'll never even know. And every time I look at it, I feel negative feelings. It has to leave my house. But the first step is identifying that that's actually what's going on. And once you know and can say, that's guilty clutter, it definitely makes it easier to let go. The fourth type of clutter is definitely the hardest to identify. This takes a lot of self awareness. Are you ready? I don't want to offend anyone, but I'm going to just be brutally honest with you. Identity clutter is something that you're only keeping because it feels like part of you, part of the person usually that you were, the person you want to be. It's not really fantasy clutter. It's like it's part of your identity. Here's an example. I see this a lot in my clients who were stay-at-home moms or homeschooling moms, had a lot of kids. Their identity was being a mother, and especially a mother to small kids. They were the PTA, they were doing crafts, they were like really involved in their kids' lives. And as their kids grew, maybe even left the house or become teenagers, there's a void there. And so it's really hard to get rid of the kids' toys, the kids' memorabilia, their stuff from the childhood because it feels like I'm getting rid of part of myself, the part that I was the most proud of. I identify as a mother. And if I get rid of the kids' toys, then what am I? And this is identity clutter can be a lot of things. It can be if you're a crafter and you're really proud of the fact that you're a crafter. You identify as someone who's super crafty. Every pom pom, every pipe cleaner, every scrap piece of paper can have significance and importance, even if you're not using it, because it feels like part of your identity. Whether you cook, whether you run, whether you identify as a book lover and therefore have to keep every book you've ever read because getting rid of a book feels like ripping out part of you, even though you're never going to read that book again and you don't actually like that book. It's not the point. This is what identity clutter does. It fills our home, and you'll see it often with collectors. Maybe someone collects teddy bears and now their whole house is freaking, this is my grandma. Sorry, Grandma Audie. Their whole house is covered in teddy bears, and they have teddy bear toilet seat covers and teddy bear bath mats and teddy bear clocks and teddy bears everything. And That's their identity. So hard to get rid of even that ugly teddy bear that they don't even like because teddy bears is now their identity. And that is an extreme situation, but I hope you get where I'm going here because you can still be a mom without all the baby toys. You can still be a book lover without keeping every book you've ever owned. You can still be a crafter without keeping pom-poms you're never going to use. And knowing why it's so hard and seeing the difference, especially when it comes to identity clutter, it can it can be really life-changing. It can free up a lot of space because you know the difference between you, your identity, the things that make you the proudest about yourself, and your stuff. The last type of clutter is what I call lazy clutter, and this is the thing I used to struggle with the most. Because I'm a naturally messy person, I still kind of struggle with this. I'm the type of person when I'm done using something, I'll just put it down instead of putting it away because I'm not thinking about it. Does that make sense? Like, I just leave little trails everywhere I go. And a lot of people do this. And lazy clutter means that these items have a home, you just didn't put them away when you were done with them. And this is a habit. And it's a habit for two reasons. One, it's just because we've always done it. We've always just put things down. So we're in the habit of putting things down. But it's also a habit because maybe where it should go is hard to put away. Even if something takes a little bit of effort, you want to put something in a drawer, but the drawer is really stuffed and you kind of got to cram it in, you're probably going to leave it out. If you have to walk 10 feet and open a cabinet, you're probably going to leave it out. If something's hard to put away, most people won't, which is why it's so important to create homes where you naturally put things down, which is why it's important to declutter so we have space to quickly toss things away. And it's also important to just train ourselves to tidy as we go. This sounds impossible, but listen, if I can do it, you can do it too. What this really means is look at your lazy clutter. Look at it, really look at it and say, where does this stuff belong? And can I create a home for it that's right underneath or right above or right there? Put a basket or something so that it's just as easy to put it away as it is to put it down. How can I change my home to catch my clutter? And then how can I train my brain to actually use the new system? And this is as simple as setting alarms. This is what I did. So, I mean, it worked for me because I'm chronically lazy, but I set alarms throughout the day to remind myself to just do quick 3, 4, 5 minute tidy up. So I'm running around the house and I'm putting things away. And what I'm really doing is training myself to put things away. So, like the brush goes in the drawer, the toothbrush goes back in the drawer, the milk goes back in the fridge so it doesn't spoil. Listen, I used to be bad, you guys, but eventually I didn't need the alarms anymore. When I was done with something, I was putting it away because I was in the habit now of putting things away instead of always putting it down. This really did change me from a messy person to a tidy person, and it isn't a miracle. I'm still kind of messy, but I'm way better than I used to be. Do me a favor and let me know in the comments below if one of these types of clutter really resonated with you. Like if you're like, yes, I struggle with lazy clutter or homeless clutter or identity clutter or all of the different kinds. But yeah, knowing the difference, being able to really like pinpoint and understand yourself, that self-awareness is definitely the first step of changing your home, changing the way you live every day, getting organized, getting tidy, and having a house that feels really effortless. It starts with yourself and knowing yourself a little bit better. So let me know in the comments what type of clutter you struggle with the most, and even if you're feeling brave, what that clutter is. Talking to you, book lovers or former stay-at-home moms or lazy clutter people like I used to be. Let me know in the comments. And thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you here next week for another organizing video. I'll see you then. Hey guys, thanks so much for those of you who have stayed to the end. So if you watched my last video, I am babysitting my parents' dogs, two little elderly chihuahuas. They're growing on me. It's a lot of work. I've really discovered a lot about myself. Mostly, I do love pets. Also, I don't want any more pets. This is what I've discovered. I'm getting to an age where I have a lizard and birds and dogs. I used to have cats and bunnies and hamsters and a ton of fish and turtles. I've had a 6-foot iguana. I've had a lot of pets in my life, and I'm looking forward to the freedom of not having to take care of anything. You know what I'm saying? Like less work. I want to simplify my life in every sense of the word. And having more dogs makes me realize pets are work. They're adding more to your plate. I probably spend an extra hour, hour and a half every day taking care of them. So here is the thing. I like taking care of things, but I don't know if I want it to be pets, so here's my new pet, sourdough. Okay? I'm on the fence. I love Farmhouse on Boone. Listen, she is insane. If you don't know Farmhouse on Boone, Lisa is some sort of magical woman who does all the incredible things. She's all the things I want to be when I grow up, but she makes a lot of sourdough recipes. And Emily and I, we kind of want to do that, but do we want to feed food every week? You have to like keep sourdough alive and feed it every week. But if it dies, I won't have to feel bad like the dogs. You know what I'm saying? So I think I'm going to try this. This is going to be my new pet. I'm looking forward to it. 2023 is going to have me doing a little bit of Farmhouse on the Boone. So let me know in the comments if you do sourdough, how often you have to really feed it, how much work is it really? Is it as much work as a dog? Is it worth it? And do you have tips? I'm going to keep you guys posted, but I see some sourdough pancakes in my future. I'll see you guys next time.